Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to week 1 of Science 9. I am Saira Abdurrahim and I am your science teacher. For today's video, we are going to talk about the respiratory system. But before we start, let me present to you the objectives for today's lesson. So first objective, you are expected to, at the end of the class discussion, explain how the respiratory system works. Next, enumerate the parts of respiratory system. Then, identify the key parts of breathing. Explain how the lungs work, and also describe how the movement of the diaphragm helps the air go in and out of the lungs. Describe blood flow and gas exchange within the heart, circulatory system, and lungs. And lastly, explain the mechanism of how the respiratory and circulatory systems work together. You are also expected to perform the following activities at the end of the lesson. For our first activity, execute the procedure of the activities and answer the following guide question. So for today's lesson, please expect to encounter a lot of picture labeling activity. And for our next activity, make a reflection report about the activities that can harm our circulatory and respiratory system and identify ways of detecting and preventing those diseases. So you may find this activity at our DIAPHRAGM e-learning site, which I will post later. For today's video, we are going to talk about the respiratory system. What is the respiratory system? Okay, so the respiratory system is the network of organs and tissues that help you breathe. It includes your airways, lungs, and blood vessels. The muscles that power your lungs are also part of the respiratory system. These parts work together to move oxygen throughout the body and clean out waste gases like carbon dioxide. Now, what does the respiratory system do? Okay, so the respiratory system has many functions. Besides helping you inhale or breathe in and exhale, breathe out, it allows you to talk and to smell. It also brings air to the body temperature and moisturizes it to the humidity level your body needs. It also delivers oxygen to the cells in your body. It removes waste gases, including carbon dioxide, from the body when you exhale. It protects your airways from harmful substances and irritants. Okay, class, for this slide, we are going to talk about the importance of breathing. So did you know that respiratory system or the respiratory system is also called the breathing system? So why do we breathe? Now examine these pictures. Between the two activities, which one consumes more oxygen? So we have two pictures here which represent two activities. The first activity, you can see from the picture that these are kids playing soccer. The other activity or the other pictures represent the sleeping activity. Okay, so which one consumes more oxygen? Now with this activity, the one with kids playing soccer, we feel that our chest bursts out in order to supply our body with high amount of air. This means that as we utilize energy, our demand for oxygen increases. So which one consumes more oxygen? Very good, the first activity. Now the next question is, why do we need oxygen? So what is oxygen? Oxygen serves as an essential element supporting life and as an integral part of the atmosphere. Oxygen plays a vital role in carrying out metabolic functions of cells, and because of this, its presence enables us to live. It also facilitates the breakdown of nutrients essential for supporting growth and development. Now we will move to the next part of our discussion. This time we will talk about the parts of the respiratory system. What are the parts of the respiratory system? Okay, so we have here first the mouth and nose. Mouth and nose are the openings that pull air from outside your body into your respiratory system. Next, we have sinuses, hollow areas between the bones in your head that helps regulate the temperature and humidity of the air you inhale. We also have here the pharynx or the throat, tube that delivers air from your mouth and nose to the trachea or your windpipe is called the pharynx. Now we have here the larynx. Larynx is also called your voice box. Larynx is a hollow organ that allows you to talk and make sounds when air moves in and out. We also have here the cilia. Cilia are tiny hairs that move in a wave-like motion to filter dust and other irritants out of your airways. Lastly, epiglottis. Epiglottis are tissue flap at the entrance to the trachea that closes when you swallow to keep food and liquids out of your airway. Now I am going to show you again the anatomy of the respiratory system. So I have shown this already kanina sa first slide natin. So again, we have already defined the few parts here, which are the mouth, the epiglottis, the pharynx, and the larynx in our last slide. So now I want you to familiarize the correct level of each part. I will give you a few seconds to familiarize this. So we have the parts of the respiratory system. We have first the nasal cavity, which is near to your nose. Then next we have the mouth and the oral cavity. Then we have the epiglottis and the pharynx. Then our larynx. Then after that the trachea, the right bronchus, and on the other side is the left bronchus. Then below is our right lung. Then beside it is the left lung. That's why it is called the lungs, because we have two, the right and the left. And below it is the diaphragm. And then on the other side, we also have the alveoli or the alveoli. Alveoli or alveoli, it depends to you. Then below is the bronchiole. Okay, now let's move on to our next slide. So now we will continue to discuss the parts of the respiratory system. So na-discuss na natin or na-define na natin kanina yung mouth, again yung epiglottis, yung larynx or your voice box, the pharynx or the windpipe. So now we will continue with trachea. So trachea is the passage connecting your throat and lungs. Next, we have the bronchial tubes. The tubes at the bottom of your windpipe or your pharynx that connect into each lung. So you have two lungs right there, the right lung and the left lung. So the lungs, now the lungs. The two organs that remove oxygen from the air and pass it in and pass it into your blood. From your lungs, your bloodstream delivers oxygen to all your organs and other tissues. Muscles and bones help move the air you inhale into and out of your lungs. So now some of the bones and muscles in the respiratory system includes your... Okay, first we have here the diaphragm. Diaphragm is the muscle that helps your lungs pull in air and push it out. We also have the ribs. Bones. Ribs are the bones that surround and protect your lungs and heart when you breathe out. Your blood carries carbon dioxide and other waste out of the body. The following are the other components that work with the lungs and blood vessels. So this includes first the alveoli or the alveoli, tiny air sacs in the lungs where the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide takes place. Next we have the bronchioles. They are the small branches of the bronchial tubes that lead to the alveoli or alveoli. Next we have the capillaries. Capillaries are blood vessels in the alveoli walls that move oxygen and carbon dioxide. And then we have the lung lobes. These are the sections of the lungs. So lung lobes has three lobes in the right lung and two in the left lung. So all in all, five. We have five lung lobes, three lobes in the right lung and two in the left lung. Next, we have the pleura, thin sacs that surround each lung lobe and separate your lungs from the chest wall. Okay, so now let's discuss about lungs. How does lungs work? Okay, so the lungs and the respiratory system allows us to breathe. They bring oxygen into our bodies called inspiration or inhalation and send carbon dioxide out called expiration or exhalation. This exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide is called respiration. Okay, so on this side we have the anatomy of the lungs. I want you also to familiarize this baka kasi lalabas sa activity nyo. Okay, so let's move to the next slide. Now let's proceed to the next slide. How the movement of the diaphragm helps the air go in and out of the lungs. Again, how the movement of the diaphragm helps the air go in and out of the lungs. So when you breathe in or inhale, your diaphragm contracts and moves downward. This increases the space in your chest cavity, and your lungs expand into it. The muscles between your ribs also help enlarge the chest cavity. They contract to pull your rib cage both upward and upward when you inhale. Now let's talk about the gas exchange in humans. So blood flow and gas exchange with the lungs. We are going to discuss now the blood flow and gas exchange within the lungs. So the gas exchange is the delivery of oxygen from the lungs to the bloodstream and the elimination of carbon dioxide from the bloodstream to the lungs. It occurs in the lungs between the alveoli and a network of tiny blood vessels called capillaries, which are located in the walls of alveoli. Okay, next slide. Let's talk about the blood flow and gas exchange within the heart. So the oxygen and carbon dioxide are two important gases because they help provide energy to our body to be able to do work. Now the blood from the heart flows through these capillaries and collects oxygen from the alveoli. At the same time, carbon dioxide passes out of the capillaries and into the alveoli. When you breathe out, you get rid of carbon dioxide. The bright red, oxygen-rich blood is returned to the heart and pumped out to the body. Okay, so this is the circulation of blood through the heart. I will give you a few seconds to analyze or maybe to familiarize this image. Okay, so as you can see, first we start with the superior vena cava. The superior vena cava, from superior vena cava the blood flows to the right atrium. Then after that, it goes to the tricuspid valve, then to the right ventricle. Then it moves to the pulmonary valve, then to the pulmonary artery. Then from the pulmonary artery, it moves to lungs, then to the left atrium, to the left ventricle, then move to the aorta, and to the rest of the body. Okay, so now let's move to the next topic. How do respiratory and circulatory system work together? So how do the respiratory and the circulatory system work together? Okay, so if the respiratory talks about the inhalation and the exhalation, and the circulatory system is about the circulation of our body, how do they work together? Okay, they supply the body cells with oxygen. The respiratory system obtains oxygen from the air, and then the circulatory system circulates it. Again, they supply the body cells with oxygen. Okay, so the respiratory system is the one that obtains the oxygen from the air, and then the circulatory system will then circulate it. So, sana na-gets yun, ha? Okay, next. Let's go to the next slide. As the respiratory system initiates gas exchange within the body, the circulatory system supplies oxygen in our cells. The pumping action of the heart and the network of channels are responsible for carrying and distributing nutrient gases, hormones, and antibodies, and many other important substances that the body needs to live. The rhythmic contraction and relaxation of the heart is what produces the sound we all know as heartbeat. The heart works tirelessly all throughout our lives and never stops to rest. Can you imagine what can happen when the heart rests? Unsa ka tapag dili na mag-beat atong heart. So, kanina, we've already talked about how the respiratory system and the circulatory system work together. So again, yung respiratory system, it obtains oxygen from the air, then the circulatory system will be the one circulating it. So now we are going to proceed with the discussion on how is the respiratory system or the circulatory system works together with the different organ system in our body. So the circulatory system supplies food, nutrients, and oxygen that all the cells of a living body needs. In turn, it collects the metabolic waste that body cells produce. Such dual function of the circulatory system requires a systematic coordination with other organ systems. To carry out its vital functions, it is imperative for the circulatory system to reach out to all organs of the body. Okay, so first let's discuss on how the circulatory system and some other organ system works. The circulatory system depends on the skeletal system for the production of blood cells. So again, for the production of blood cells, the circulatory system depends on the skeletal system. Very good. Now, the red blood cells are produced in the red marrow of flat bones, such as the ribs, and long bones, such as thigh bones. Again, the flat bones are the ribs, and the long bones are the thigh bones. So blood cells, including red blood cells, certain white blood cells, and blood platelets, are formed from special connective tissues referred to as hemocytoblasts. The circulatory system and the muscular system keep each other healthy. The healthier and more active the muscular system is, the healthier the circulatory system is. Okay, so that's why it is very important na palagi tayong may exercise routine sa ating ginagawa everyday. The active muscles demand a greater amount of oxygen and nutrients for energy source and repair of worn-out tissues. The heart pumps harder to enable the blood to provide these needs. Blood also collects waste products from the hard-working muscles and carries them to the respective excretory organs. Okay, so next we have the circulatory system and the digestive system. Most of the digested foods are absorbed in the intestinal villi. Intestinal villi is the tiny finger-like projections at the lower portion of the small intestine. Each vilus is provided with two kinds of vessels. What are the two kinds of vessels? What are those two kinds of vessels? Okay, the capillaries and the lacteals. Okay, so next, the circulatory system and the excretory system. The circulatory system plays a very important role in the excretion of metabolic waste products of our body. The circulating blood is responsible for collecting these waste products from all body cells and transporting them to various excretory organs through which particular wastes are expelled from the body. Okay, so give me example of excretory organs. Yung nagpapalabas ng metabolic waste sa body natin. Okay, if you answered kidney, then you are correct. Okay, so now let's proceed with the circulatory system and the endocrine system. Certain glands in the body release their secretions directly into the bloodstream instead of through tiny tube-like duct. These tiny tube-like ducts are called ductless or endocrine glands. Their secretions are called hormones. Hormones are special protein substances that are present in small quantities in the body. They bring about changes in cells or tissues which are referred to as their targets. Okay, so again, another one here we have the circulatory system and the nervous system. When we say nervous system, we are talking about our brain. Okay, so the nervous system works with the circulatory system mainly in the heart by controlling the flow of blood in the different chambers of the heart. The nervous system controls the electrical relay system. Again, the nervous system controls the electrical relay system. The electrical relay system in the heart by opening or closing chambers of the heart to ensure that blood travels out of the left ventricles into the rest of the body. The muscle of the heart and that of the blood vessels are called involuntary muscle because they are not under the control of our will. Their actions are governed by the autonomous nervous system through the sympathetic and parasympathetic nerves whose actions are opposite each other. A sympathetic nerve makes the heart beat faster while a parasympathetic nerve slows down heartbeat. Thus, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nerves regulate and control each other's activity to maintain homeostasis or the dynamic balance in the functioning of the heart. The hypothalamus of the forebrain in the central nervous system plays another important role for homeostasis. Among its vital functions are to regulate blood pressure and to control the secretions of many hormones. Okay, now let's talk about the conditions that can affect the respiratory system. So what are those conditions that affect the respiratory system? Many conditions can affect the organs and tissues that make up the respiratory system. Some develop due to irritants you breathe in from the air, including viruses or bacteria that cause infection, and others occur as a result of disease or getting older. So the conditions that can cause inflammation, when we say inflammation, it is the swelling or the irritation and pain or otherwise affect the respiratory system include the following. First, we have the allergies. Inhaling proteins such as dust, mold, and pollen can cause respiratory allergies in some people. These proteins can cause inflammation in your airways. Next, we have the asthma. Asthma is a chronic, long-term disorder. Asthma causes inflammation in the airways that can make breathing difficult. We also have here infection. Infections can lead to pneumonia, inflammation of the lungs or bronchitis, inflammation of the bronchial tubes. The common respiratory infections include the flu or the influenza or a cold. Next, we have disease. Respiratory disorders include lung cancer and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease or the COPD. These illnesses can harm the respiratory system's ability to deliver oxygen throughout the body and filter out waste gases. We also have here the aging. So lung capacity decreases as you get older. So kapag tumatanda tayo, mas humihina na yung lungs natin. Next, we have the damage. Damage to the respiratory system can cause breathing problems. Okay, so how does the circulatory system work with the other excretory organs? The liver cells change amino acids through the series of chemical reactions into urea. Urea is the nitrogenous waste is then transported by the blood from the liver mostly to the kidney where it is filtered out of the blood and expelled as part of the urine. Okay, so that's the end of our discussion about the respiratory system and the other organ system involved with the respiratory system. Okay, so did you understand the lesson? If yes, then let's have a review. Okay, first question. What is the function of a respiratory system? So we had discussed already about the function of the respiratory system. Now, what is the function of a respiratory system? Very good. The function of the respiratory system, besides helping you inhale, breathe in and exhale, breathe out, the respiratory system allows you to talk and to smell. It brings air to the body temperature and moisturizes it to the humidity level of your body needs. It also delivers oxygen to the cells in your body. It removes waste gases, including carbon dioxide, from the body when you exhale. It also protects your airways from harmful substances and irritants. Now let's move to the next slide. Now moving on to our next question, we have here question number 2. What are the parts of the respiratory system? So I have already shown you the anatomy of the respiratory system kanina, and I told you to familiarize it. I hope you can still recall those parts. Okay, so the answer is the respiratory system has many different parts that work together to help you breathe. The following are the parts of the respiratory system. So if you answered mouth and nose, epiglottis, pharynx, larynx, trachea, right and left bronchus, bronchiole, lungs, diaphragm and alveoli, then you are correct. So now for our last question, how do the respiratory and the circulatory system work together? Again, how do the respiratory and the circulatory system work together? So the answer is they supply the body cells with oxygen. The respiratory system obtains oxygen from the air and the circulatory system circulates it. So that's it for our week 1 discussion. If you still have any other question, please don't hesitate to contact me at my cell phone number, which is flashed on screen. And for your activities, please visit our Guide If e-learning site, which is the https www.guideif.com/elearning. So, thank you for listening. I will see you on our next video. I am Saira Abdurrahim, and that's it. Thank you.